Yes, Chris?
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's about 9 o'clock here in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. So we're going to get started with today's webinar. My name is Chris Pradis. In just a minute, I'll do some introductions for the rest of the team we have on the call. But just again, the subject of today's call is improving child health through hygienic poultry management. To try and make this a little bit more interesting and dynamic, despite being on Zoom, we do have a mix of kind of multimedia video content from the communities where we're working. And then separate from that, we plan to do a Q&A. So I'll get to the agenda in a minute, but just to note that this does have a lot of video. So if you are on your phone, dialing in, you may want to try and find a device where you can actually log in through Zoom so you can see the videos. All right. And just some housekeeping here. I believe I've turned off the chat, which should allow you to send, but you should be able to put in questions through the Q&A box. So if, let's see, I think I see, let's see, who would be good for this? If Laura Kwong, I see you on the participant list. I hope you don't mind that I mentioned that. If you don't mind just doing a test question, just so we can make sure that works. And just throughout this presentation, what I'll ask is that if people want to put in their questions, when we get to the Q&A sections, we'll have folks address it directly. But just to turn now to the agenda for today, the first part is just simply introductions. Then I'll provide a brief overview of the project that we're undertaking and the program that we're doing. And then, as I mentioned, we'll switch to a video, which really tries to outline what chicken rearing is like in rural Uganda. What are the typical practices? What are the practices we would recommend but are more rare? And then we'll have a Q&A. So we have some of our staff that are on this call that will answer questions that you have around any aspect of our work. And then after that Q&A, we'll turn to another video about our program. So the second video will be actually walking through what our program looks like with our staff providing some commentary as well as participants in the program. And then again, we'll turn to a Q&A. Our goal for this is to actually have it in an hour. I think the webinar will go for an hour and a half. So if you have extra time, if there's extra questions that we want to address in that extra half hour, we can, but I know people are busy, so we're going to try and keep it to an hour. And thank you, Laura. I see your question there. And yeah, and so that's great. So the functionality works. I think you should be able to upvote questions. A lot of this is new to me, so if you know how to do that, feel free to. Otherwise, just ask your questions. All right. So first, just to tell you a little bit about the Water Trust, we were founded in 2008. We are a water sanitation and hygiene organization. We did not get into this project because we're really passionate about chicken rearing. We came to chicken rearing because of our interest in sanitation and hygiene. We work in Western Uganda, in particular in Masindi and Kiryandungo districts. And I would say that sort of what differentiates us within the water and sanitation space is that we're very focused on behavior change. So we do construction of water points, of latrines, of things like that. But we're very focused on behavior change through self-help groups in particular. So we have a variation on the savings group methodology, Village Savings Loan Association, where we form these groups in water point catchments and use that to really promote a number of different hygiene and sanitation behaviors. And who we have on the line today, we have Sunday, who's a community development officer. So he's actually in the communities training people on these topics. We have Angelique Diogardi, who's our country director, who played a kind of fundamental pivotal role in the program design for this. Scovia Namande, who's our senior community development officer. So she'll manage a team of community development officers that are doing this program. Then we have myself, Chris Pradis, executive director for the Water Trust. Some quick notes about this grant and this project. So the grant for this project was awarded by the United States Agency for International Development as part of the Water, Sanitation, Hygiene Partnerships and Learning for Sustainability project. This webinar is made possible by the support of the American people through the United States Agency for International Development. The contents of this webinar are the sole responsibility of the Water Trust and do not necessarily reflect the views of USAID or the United States government. So with that out of the way, I guess the only other point I'll make here is that we do have our research partners online. So we have Dr. Aisha Erkman and Dr. Angela Harris from North Carolina State University. So they are here as well because we do have a randomized controlled trial that's associated with this program, as well as some microbial work looking at what impact we're having on feces observable in the soil. So they're on hand as well. So when we get to Q&A, if there are questions that are more research oriented, we'll direct them their way. All right, so before getting to the video, I did want to provide some basic information so that you know what you're getting into. So let's first start with our motivation here. So we found in research with our research partners I just mentioned that 83% an 83% higher risk of diarrhea for children under 5 in households that had more chickens, more than the average number of chickens in our communities. And so this was a study, it's published, it's available. We can make the link available as well. So this was a correlation, it's an association, it's not a randomized controlled trial, but we controlled for a number of factors, including wealth, sanitation. We were really surprised by the results, and it was really striking that chickens were really the only animal that had this relationship. We did not find it with any other animals. So that happened in summer 2018, and that brings us to the timeline. So in summer 2018, we identified that problem. We started doing essentially more informal research, I would say, with communities throughout 2018. And then the following year, we received a grant from, as I mentioned, USAID to develop this program. And so we had already done some internal training on poultry, but the program development period was really in this August to October of 2019 timeline. And in that, what that process included was consultations with 7+ villages, single sex focus group discussions and things like that. We have partners in Livelihood training, specializing in chicken rearing that were there with us, veterinarian, things like that. So it's not just us, the WASH organization, developing this program, it's working with local experts in these different areas. Then implementation, it's a really abbreviated timeline. You see that we've been implementing since October, and we're continuing into August. And the one thing I'll note there is that initially we were planning to implement until May, the end of May, essentially. With COVID, that really was quite disruptive, as you might imagine. We had to suspend our coaching visits in March, and that was a really critical time for the behavior change to occur. Also, and this relates to our intervention, the savings groups that we trained, the savings groups are supposed to act as a resource for financing some of these improvements. And they were just starting their savings cycle for the most part. Many start around January. And so many of these groups are really undercapitalized at the moment. So we've extended our timeline until August. We are returning to doing community visits this month, while following all Ministry of Health guidelines and getting all of our visits and things like that approved with the district governments. But we are returning to community engagements this month. And the evaluation that will follow from August to December will include 2 rounds of surveys. So we're doing that in order to try and get enough statistical power to evaluate the program's impact on diarrhea. So what the intervention itself is a 1-day triggering exercise. So similar to community-led total sanitation, but focused on the risk of chickens is the simplest way to put it. And we'll have more information in the videos that come on that. The 3-day training, practical skill building activities, not classroom learning is sort of the main important point to make there. And then 5 months of coaching. So those would be monthly coaching visits by our staff. And the one thing I would just say in here, there's some implied tasks here, like identifying local chicken farmers who can be champions for the practices, things like that are going on too, but these are the main activities. And then finally, the recent addition at the bottom, the no interest loans for poultry. So as I mentioned, we have a bunch of, in our theory of change, we assume that there are savings groups that are capitalized to extend loans to people to build facilities such as a chicken house, to pay for immunizations and things like that. And that's simply not the case. Self-help group functionality over the past several months has been very, very low. The groups may be meeting, but they will only have, let's say, 10 to 25% of the members in attendance. And they simply have not been saving at the rate. And so what we've done here is we don't want to have that be the reason why this approach fails, right? We think that by extending these no interest group loans, and we can talk more about that in the Q&A, we can address some of the access to financing on terms that are acceptable. And I think further, research in the future would have to identify whether a no interest loan or a cash grant or a loan with interest is the right way to do it, but this is the approach we're taking. All right. So now I'm going to test my technical ability here and try and share this video. So one moment.
Our program aims to empower rural families to improve their children's health and their economic well-being.
And my apologies, I shared the wrong video. One moment, please.
In rural Uganda, chickens are a part of everyday life. They are valued as an affordable source of nutrition and a form of savings to pay for school fees or unexpected expenses. Many also value chickens for other reasons, such as their use as security guards, alarm clocks, and a ready offering for a special guest or occasion.
Zikira kuba zikamanyira abantu zikara mu bana n'abana bakara nazo kurungi kandi tubulaho nzinire no kuba bazereza nke byokulya nkezo so zikara muno n'abantu tuzina mabuzibu.
Yet while chickens are common, most households invest minimal time and energy in managing their chickens. And as a result, few households have enough chickens and eggs for regular consumption or income. In addition, the undermanaged chicken feces spreads throughout the compound and creates a hidden health risk for children. While some households confine their chickens to a chicken run or chicken coop, most let their chickens roam freely around the compound, interacting with children. Many people think this is necessary so that chickens can scavenge for food rather than eat expensive feed purchased at the local market. At nighttime, you will find chickens often sleeping inside the home, out of concern that the chickens may otherwise be eaten by a predator or stolen. This protection comes at the cost of greater child exposure to chicken feces. In addition to the problems of inadequate chicken housing and feed, diseases such as Newcastle disease are rampant, and very few households immunize their chickens. As a result, a high percentage of chickens are lost to predators, theft, and disease, and the stressed, undernourished chickens that survive have lower productivity, limiting a family's ability to increase their assets through chicken rearing. The exposure of children to chicken feces is also affected by the sense that as chicken feces is so small, it is not particularly dangerous. As a result of these management practices and beliefs, children play in and even ingest in highly contaminated soil, leading to chronic disease. In addition to limited awareness of the health risks and potential economic returns of improved poultry management, some households also struggle with a sense that there is little that they can do to change their current reality. Households perceive few, if any, affordable options to improve poultry management. As a result, they spend little time and money on poultry management, which leads to both worse child health and lower productivity of chickens. The high fatality rate of chickens then further reduces the incentive to invest in managing poultry. The challenge is how to help households break this cycle, investing more time and money in safely managing their poultry so that children's exposure to chicken feces decreases while productivity increases. The benefits of a change can be significant, as healthier children can enjoy the nutrition of increased egg supply, and households can capture the economic value of the countless chickens and eggs they are losing unnecessarily to predation, disease, and theft, as well as increased agricultural productivity from the use of the feces as fertilizer. To achieve these outcomes, there are both affordable options and more expensive, more durable options to hygienically manage chickens in a rural setting. The first step is a chicken run, which cordons off separate space for chickens to roam separate from children. It can be made of locally gathered wood or fish nets and poles. The next step is a chicken coop. Again, it can be made of mud, wattle, poles, grass, or more expensive brick that will reduce risk of termites eating away at the structure. Beyond this infrastructure, hygiene is critical. A simple foot wash station with bleach and a tippy-tap hand washing station with soap allows for washing hands and feet before and after entering the chicken run. Once chickens are confined, the household needs to sweep the chicken area, using a corn husk, scoop, or a bag to pick up the poop, and coffee husks to help dry the poop prior to use as fertilizer. A perch makes it easier for chickens to poop in the same place, which allows for easier collection and cleaning.
Omugaso guli kuyiyamu ebisyodo ebyo otabikwasire mu ngaro kutangira bulwaire abokubasangire nkebaliza kutangira bulwaire n'ebisyodo ebyo nyina kubiyiyamu nukwo bitaleetere enkoko bulwaire.
These practices are necessary to not just reduce exposure of children to chicken feces, but to improve the productivity of chickens.
Kulazikingiro mukiju zikuba zitakyalibwa ebisoro aheru ebyakubairiza bikwata nibiru bataru bataheru eti bungu bamazire kuombeka ekijunja kuteekamu burudayo kubulindiramu nuko bukule kurungi atalo kibutalibanize nkoko berabezairo bwana 10 bona bumbukuze mbutere mibazi mbugeme kurungi bukule kandi nenyongo bole mungikolenka business mfuna mesende.
One key challenge households raise is how their chickens, now confined to a chicken run and house, will eat if they cannot scavenge freely for food. Most people think they would have to buy expensive chicken feed, when in reality, most agricultural households can mix feed from locally available crops. Vaccination is also critical to avoid deadly diseases which can quickly take out all of a family's chickens.
Enkoko zenu tuzigema okira muno kurango tuzitangire kukwata obulwaire muno obuzirumba. So obo zigemere ziba immune nobuzikwata obulwaire then kiba ize muno kuzijanja bakandi zikakira. Kyonka bota zigemere buli bulwaire bukayizire buzikwata nebuzitera kandi zona nizifanize wawo. So omugaso gukugema kiri kikuru muno kugema genkoko from day 1 zigemwa, second week inogema, third week inogema, fourth week inogema. Then anyuma usakutanga ogemaga after like 2-3 months.
Other valuable practices include synchronized incubation and a brooder for chicks. Synchronized incubation helps hens lay more eggs at a single time, which not only increases the egg laying and hatching of each hen, but it makes it more cost-effective to vaccinate more chickens. Brooding chicks by placing them in a small hygienic pen with warm light, food, and water within the chicken coop also significantly increases productivity.
Yeah, synchronized incubation is always important to people managing poultry because, one, it helps someone managing poultry to have more chicks at the same time, to have more eggs at the same time, and it becomes very easy to manage them and grow them early.
The price of adopting each practice can vary significantly. The largest cost would be the chicken coop, which could range from 80,000 Ugandan shillings or $22, to 600,000 shillings, or $162. Most other supplies are 10,000 shillings, or about $3, or just reusing commonly available materials at home. With these added costs come great benefits. Beyond improving child health, the returns to proactive poultry management can be significant.
Enkoko zino tuzorora awensonga nyingi. Okubanza guli muhanda gwentaya. Eri business atinka nyowe niyo business nyemereizoho kura nti abana bange bakusoma. Arwali mu secondary, abandi bali mu primary, kyonka sente nziruganka omukuorora enkoko nezitunda. Na mauli aganyamu ekikubanza. Ekya kabiri enkoko zino ziyabire muno omukulya enyama. Yoti ngenda mukatale buli mukata isumani ntamu ndangamba mukwate enkoko empanga egyo nimukisara ntugisa ntugirya. Bonka tekao kiragiro ati buli kilo buli mwana ali ayuliremu. Ekintu kyo kisingire bulungi akuwa abana bakura bombekero mubiri baina mibirisa byone bikuba mara point zikumara mubiri gwabo. Nawe kyonkoko zine birungi byazo bingi kandi kyakandi enkoko ezo omuwaine mundomo ali mu bisodo bwazo tukosa nkamaniwa mukubyara bitoke kusenso omusiri mumyani musanga biri mu byona biri birungi muno.
Ninyaye bale prose ngoza muno nkoko zimpreza muno mauli ndiali mungenda isomero buli kilo.
Given the large benefits of effective poultry management, the question is, how can we help poor rural households shift away from low-investment, low-return, unhygienic chicken rearing and take up poultry management practices that will both reduce risks to child health as well as improve livelihood outcomes?
All right. Well, I hope that video worked out for everyone. I also just want to note, if you do have problems with video, I think you can chat the panelists. So do let me know if there's any problem with the video. But with that, we are ready to switch to our Q&A section here. Again, we're gonna have two Q&A parts. This Q&A is really focused on what are the conditions around rural chicken rearing that you typically find in this kind of context in Uganda? What are the good practices? What do you typically find? What are the reasons? Any questions people have like that? Also, any questions you have around the project at a high level in terms of the research or anything like that, we're happy to take those questions now. And then again, after this, we'll have a video that's really about our program and what we're doing to try and get people from where they start off to the ideal practices, or at least further up the ladder. So for now, I'll just give everyone a minute to enter in any questions, and then in about 30 seconds, I'll work with what questions we have, or I'll ask some of my questions of our team. Okay, great. So let's start off with the first question. So one question was around how vaccination is managed by the local farmers or the water trust. So maybe if we can turn to Sunday or to Scovia, if you could unmute yourself and then just tell us about sort of how they're typically managed, what the process is for vaccination. It's certainly not by the water trust, but maybe if you can talk through what the process is and what are some of the obstacles to immunizing chickens in our setting.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. In our rural communities, the way our communities
Scovia, I think you may have a connection issue. Okay, I think we've lost Scovia. Sunday, could you provide an answer? Thanks.
We can't hear Scovia.
Chicken in the communities, bring group.
Okay, I think Scovia is having some issues. Sunday, would you mind answering?
Can you hear Scovia, or I continue with the discussion?
Please continue, Sunday.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. Your question said how the vaccination and treatment is made in the local poultry management in our area.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, how these people do, the local poultry farmers, is sometimes they use the district or sub-county veterinary doctors, and as Water Trust, we also trained the champions who give support, who have knowledge in poultry management, who have practical skills in poultry management, to give support to these rural farmers who are practicing poultry in areas where we trained. So these trained champions always go to assist those people who need to vaccinate their chickens, and also to give them advice. Great,
thanks, Sunday. And I think what you'll also see in the next video, there's some discussion around immunizations, because one of the issues is that it can be expensive to immunize only 1 or 2 chickens, but then very cheap if you immunize many more.
Exactly, and what we normally advise the group members, if members have more than, they can come together in group. Those, and because we do in groups in our communities, so we advise them to come together. For those who have more than 1 or 4, then they consolidate the resources. Then it becomes more less costly if they are to invite maybe on individual basis. So when the vet doctor has to do it at a group level, which seems more cheaper than when one person invites the vet doctor for vaccination. But also, the local communities believe that their local greens, local herbs, that they can give the chicken to boost their immunity, like the bitter queens, red pepper, and so on. So alongside the vaccination, they also give them the local treatments, local medicines that also help to boost the chicken's immunity.
Great. No, thank you, Sunday. And I think one other question that that people might have as well is, like, why are we talking about immunizations, right? And I think it's worth just taking a second on this to say, we're talking about immunizations and a lot of the livelihood aspects of poultry because it seems to be directly interrelated to hygiene. Like, you can't solve hygiene without solving these other practices, because if the chickens aren't immunized, for example, and you tell them to put them in a confined space where disease spreads more easily and all their chickens die, they're not going to be motivated to manage their chickens. And if they're not motivated to manage their chickens, they're going to be managed unhygienically. So that's a great thing. Thank you, Sunday. Another question we had was around, are chicken feces currently valued or used? So that's a great question. So maybe Sunday, if you could just tell us about, like, if there are 10 households that have chickens, how many of those 10 will typically be actually using the chicken poop as fertilizer? And how common is it? And how much do they value that aspect?
Thank you, Chris. From the coaching I've been making, there are those households that have started adapting it very fast on the modern way of doing it. And the example they give is the chicken poops. They use them for fertilization in their gardens, and there are others who are using them to have home green gardens, like horticulture and at household level. And they are taking it as something that is very valuable, which used not to happen previously, after or before having the training, rather. And they are finding it more valuable and more important, because gathering, they used to loiter in the compound, and they didn't know that chicken poops are more important when it comes to boosting or improving fertilization in the gardens or in their crops and so on.
Yep.
And currently, for those households that are adopting, which have already started gazetting the chickens to stay in chicken houses, they are collecting these chicken poops and putting them in gardens for fertilization.
Yep. No, thank you, Sunday. And that's a really great point, because I think there's kind of two parts of that question. One, how is it valued or used by people who actually manage their chickens so that they're pooping in a confined space where it's easier to collect versus the households that are not doing that and letting their chickens run freely. And if you only have a couple chickens and they're running freely throughout the compound, that's a lot of work for not a lot of return in terms of collecting that and using it as fertilizer. But if you have more chickens or you have them in a confined space where it's cheaper in terms of time and energy to collect it, then it becomes, the interest level goes up. Great. All right. So we have a few more questions here that I want to get to. So this is a great question around chicken coops or houses. And I think we can be a little bit, people mean different things by chicken coops or chicken houses in different contexts. So let's say that there's smaller chicken houses, which might be more of a coop that's elevated where chickens might sleep, for example, but maybe don't provide a lot of space. And then there are larger chicken houses like we saw in that video. So in terms of those larger chicken houses, what are the barriers that we're finding that are stopping households besides money? So if money is one obstacle, what are other barriers to getting households to build chicken houses? And Sunday, if you could respond.
The biggest barrier at the moment, when we were doing triggering, we realized that local materials are important in putting up chicken houses. But again, currently, there is a scarcity of those local materials because most of the communities have depleted the environment, and the local materials are scarce. So the only option is to involve some kind of cost, or even others go to the national park, and which also involve cost to buy them. So the issue of scarcity of local materials is a very big barrier, and this is general to all the groups that have been moving in doing coaching, and it is a common issue. Even today, I was making some kind of verification before I joined you. It is a common factor. The local materials are scarce.
Yep, and I'll just note that that's also related to the access to finance issue. Even though we're essentially, because that local materials are scarce, then that increases the cost and means you have to buy the materials even if they are locally available.
Exactly.
And I would just note that in terms of other obstacles that are non-financial, right? There are obstacles where, if you only have 2 or 3 chickens, for example, you may not want to build a chicken house, right? So it's enough, or if you have 5 chickens, you might not want to build a chicken house. It's sort of, if you have the lower number of chickens, your incentive to invest will be lower, which means you're more likely to let them roam freely. And so I do think that there's sort of like a number, it will vary by person, but there's a threshold for each person of like how many chickens do they need to have where it will actually feel like a good investment of time and energy to build a chicken house. And the troubling aspect is that, having 6 chickens or 7 chickens might be enough to dramatically, dramatically hurt child health, to harm child health, but might not be enough chickens to motivate people to build a chicken house. So that's kind of one of the tensions here. Sorry, go ahead.
Chris, to add on that, another barrier is mostly the households headed by women. They're finding it a little bit challenging as women to build houses. So for those houses that are headed by female or women in these groups, it requires them to incur costs to hire some people to construct for them. However much some of them are doing it, like when it comes to doing chicken run, but it's hard for them, maybe like females, to climb on top of the roof, to do the roofings, to making bricks and so on. So for the household that are headed by women, it's a challenge for them because they are not practical in doing it compared to men.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And I think we'll wrap up with one or two questions here and then move on to the next video. But I just want to stay on that topic of gender because that is something that we're spending a lot of time on in our work, because like Sunday, like you said, it is complex where women might be doing more of the chicken rearing, and that's one of the potential positive outcomes of a project like this, is that it can increase the economic asset base that women have some degree of control over. At the same time, there's intra-household negotiation and decision making around poultry. There's cooperation that's often needed with the men in the household who may not be the primary person doing the chicken rearing, but will have a lot of control or influence in the household's decision making. So we do in our program try to engage both. It's not exclusively focused on women. Women are, a greater percentage of participants in the training are women, but our goal is to work with both men and women in the household, if there are men and women in the household, to build their engagement in the project. Just quickly now moving on here. So there's a couple questions. One was around, as originally envisioned, would savings groups be obliged to use their savings for chicken farming? What would dissuade them from using it for other purposes? So no, to be clear, savings groups are independent, autonomous organizations. They make decisions. If anything, we make recommendations to them. We encourage them to do things. We do not oblige savings groups to do anything. With the no interest loan, for example, we're offering, it is an offer, and it has conditions on it for what thresholds, like improvement thresholds in their community, in terms of constructing chicken houses, constructing chicken runs, that they would have to meet to qualify for it to be no interest, right? And if they don't, then it's more of a regular loan and they would pay some interest on it. But no, there's no obligation. And just moving on here, there's another question around, in Bangladesh, we've heard that chicken feces are too hot to use as a fertilizer unless compared for a year, I think, unless dried out for a year. Can you say more about the composting? So I don't know if Sunday or Lika, if you can speak to the feces fertilizer question about how long it needs to be safe, if there's any issues with it being too hot and so it will burn the crops essentially, if I'm getting my terminology right.
When we consulted with Harambe Farms, who do this regularly, they had said we need a few days to make sure it's dried out, to make it more inert and make sure there was no, so like a week, they said a few days to a week, better, a few more days longer is better. So that's what we have given as instruction, that you should collect it and then dry it out in the sun for a few days.
Great, thank you. All right, and just quickly on some other questions. So one was around, for an organization looking to provide support on poultry rearing, what would you consider as an average cost to support a household to start poultry rearing, factoring the aspects to ensure safety and improve livelihood outcomes? So, we haven't, this is a pilot, we're doing this for the first time. How we staff this project is different than how we would staff it normally. So we would have to really spend some time to answer that question in a way I'd be confident about. But what I would say is that if you look at the amount of labor, there's essentially a 1-day triggering activity. There's a 3-day training with a staff member. And so the cost of that time will depend on what level you're staffing at. And then there's monthly coaching visits, and there's 5 of them. So that's about as much labor as there is. Again, besides the no interest loan, we're not giving any supplies. We have training materials that have some costs, but it's relatively low cost. And I think the idea here is that this is a relatively low cost intervention that can target savings groups in particular, because savings groups can be a really efficient platform for this kind of work. So it's designed to be low cost. Another question, how much does labor for shed construction cost? So maybe just briefly, Sunday, if you were to construct a chicken house, if someone were to construct a chicken house and they have to pay someone to do it, how much would that cost if they paid someone?
One, it depends on the size of the chicken house one is constructing, and don't they pay for labor, because when someone's coming to construct, as they have only hire labor. So honestly, I can't ascertain how much each person can ask to construct. It depends on the negotiation, but from what I've been hearing in the community, it can take between 100 to 200,000 Ugandan shillings.
Okay, great.
It is negotiable.
Yes, definitely, that makes sense. And so if I do my math really quick, I think that's around $27 would be the labor if someone paid for it. Okay, great. Well then, if we, and a great comment I just saw coming in, we focus on the cost, but we should also consider the nutritional benefits, not least on the cognitive development of young children. I think that's a great point. And, maybe just to note again, to provide a little bit of context on our research, we came to this because of the hygiene risks, and our research is focused on that in terms of our primary outcomes, being diarrhea in children under 5 reported by caregivers, and a number of intermediate outcomes related to what we can observe in terms of poultry rearing practices and what we can observe in terms of chicken feces. We do have outcomes related to nutrition, such as egg consumption by children, egg consumption by household members more broadly. We do have some outcomes related to like chickens, so the number, which are more related to the livelihood aspect of it. So we are interested in those other aspects as well. And maybe one other note before I move on to the next video here is, we do have a pretty diverse group of attendees today. So about 45% are WASH exclusive. This is all self-reported data. 18% are livelihood, 15% were multi-sectoral in one way or another, 10% nutrition, and 13% were other. So, we have an interesting group of people here, and I think that comment really gets to this, is that chickens are really a cross-cutting topic. They're relevant for lots of different sectors in different ways. And I think that what we're getting at with the hygiene aspect is that this is a really important aspect to consider. Like if you're increasing chickens without taking these things into account, you might be increasing child risk. And so it's, to me, the overarching question with this project is, can we arrive at a livelihood training module that helps people improve their livelihood outcomes and nutrition availability, at least in the home, but doing it hygienically. All right, so with that, I'm gonna do my best to get us to the other video.
Our program aims to empower rural families to improve their children's health and their economic well-being through effective hygienic poultry management. Our project in Western Uganda targets members of existing self-help groups which were trained to both mobilize funds for the maintenance and repair of their shared well as provide savings and credit services to group members. We have 3 steps to our program: triggering, training, and coaching. The triggering is a 1-day participatory training exercise which aims to increase people's awareness of the health risks to both children and chickens of current poultry management practices, and to introduce small, doable actions that would reduce the risks, improving child health and livelihood outcomes. A successful triggering not only raises awareness of risks, but expands their sense of what is possible and increases their sense of what they can accomplish despite limited resources.
What makes a training successful is the attendance. That's one. Because, for example, like I trained a group with 52 members and 40 turned up. That's about 76% of turn up. That's successful. Then activeness of the members makes it successful. And then also the action made, action that has been agreed upon by the members on what they will start doing. Like find most of them say, we shall start by constructing chicken houses. We shall start by making the doable actions that they can easily manage as they keep on coping up slowly by slowly.
Following this triggering, a 3-day poultry management training is held. This activity focuses on practical skill-building exercises. Participants see firsthand how they can adopt recommended poultry management practices and discuss their concerns and questions. Successful local chicken farmers are identified during the triggering and training processes and encouraged to help their neighbors adopt better practices. Throughout the training, we emphasize both the health and livelihood benefits of the management practices.
We always have livelihood training in the component of poultry management simply because we want this to act as a morale booster to our community members, and also to enable them foster the issues concerning poultry management, issue concerning health, because our goal is to ensure that children below 5 years live in a good health, and there is a clear separation between children and chicken poop. Because if you don't have that element of livelihood, it becomes a little bit challenging to tell like a person to have a chicken run, tell a person to have a confined poultry house.
Egonka training wa omusomo gwenkoko kumara ebiro 3. Omusomo ogwo nkegamu bintu bingi muno. Nkegamu ebyobwecumi, kulinda enkoko hamu n'abaana kubawukaniza enkoko n'abantu oba n'abaana bato. Habwokuba enkoko ezo zituleetera oburwaire, hala abaana bali hansi muno emyaka 5. Yego. Kutandika kwombeka ekiju ekyo, katandikisa n'okora pulaani ya Kenya ikara, nyabaramu nyagamba ekiju kinu, nyina kwombeka ekikuso kundindira enkoko 10 n'ogenda haiguru. Nyatandika n'okulima mu bibiina nyaserura ebikondo mu kisaka amabingo. Ekiju ekyo kikamaraho sente ng'emitwaro 8. Materials nkakira kutema ebikondo mu kisaka, ebiina nkabyerimira, n'okyombeka hani nkakora hani nateekaho leba baba ne bakinsakalira n'okukinga.
The key messages has always been members to look at what they can do, not look at things that are really beyond their level. For example, to have those doable actions in as far as poultry management and separation of chickens from children, chicken from human beings. For example, saying there are some who have been sleeping with chicken in the same house. So we say, what you can do is to make sure you separate them, put them in another house or in another area where they can sleep than sleeping with them, since they are harmful. They pose health risks to children. And then simple things like cleaning the compound all the time, having hand washing facility, on constructing a poultry house using the locally available materials, than them focusing on those big issues that they cannot handle at the moment. So slowly by slowly, as they grow, as they master the poultry management, they can have that advanced poultry house, advanced chicken run with chain link and so on. But we are emphasizing on them using the local available materials and what is within their means.
Following the poultry training, staff conduct coaching visits during the self-help group's regular meeting times once per month for 4 to 5 months. They collect data on what behaviors have been taken up and provide coaching and troubleshooting support to households. This step is critical.
So the coaching visits, they help us, one, to restrain on the doable actions that we agreed on in the training, like what is going on, what are people doing, what is challenging, how have they picked up, what have they learned. There must be something new, or someone has tried out something new, so we re-echo on the actions from the training.
On coaching visit, we normally focus on the different behaviors that we normally train these groups on. For example, like we focus on construction of chicken house, brooder, synchronized incubation, having hand washing facility, and other behaviors that are supposed to separating chicken from children and human beings. So when we come for coaching, we ask the group members, yes, in our training,
we are going to do ABC. How far have you gone? What have you done so far? What has made it hard for you to do it? What do you think can be possible to do it? And then also we re-emphasize on doable actions that they can easily do, they can easily manage, that will focus on separating children from chicken, separating human beings from chicken, to avoid issues concerning health risks related to poultry and human beings.
We expect the self-help groups to play an important role in this behavior change process. Their weekly group meetings allow for sharing challenges, helping one another make improvements, and taking collective actions such as bulk ordering of vaccinations. In addition, the groups provide access to capital in the form of savings and loans that can be used for investments in poultry facilities and supplies.
And then another concern has been, some say, I have 2 chickens, I have 3, 4, but now it looks more expensive because some say I cannot make a practical vaccination. Yes, we have trained them on having practical vaccination and treatment, but some still say it may appear to be a little bit challenging to them. And the option is to come together as a group and maybe pull the resources together as members of the group, and then invite, say, like a veterinary doctor or a trained veterinary doctor who can help them in vaccinating their chickens at the same time. So the issue of saying that they can't make vaccination when they have few chickens and may appear to be expensive for them, to invite, maybe to do it at an individual level, we tell them to have it as a group, since they're already in a self-help group.
The program is still underway, but there are some encouraging results.
Kandi groups ezo zikasomesebwa mulingo zikusemeramu kuororamu enkoko. Enyumaho bakaba ne basora kuba ne balinda nkoko mbaitu ombutamanya zatungaga endwaire, zatungaga obutazaara kurungi, kandi ne basobora kuikara batakurakurana omu byokwerora. Okusoma kwanu kyali kwija bazororaga ne batakuzirisa kikumara zitakurara harungi, kandi neso kutunga n'endwaire abo butamanya kutunga emibazi, management etakumara kurungi ekurorera nkoko ezo.
Ubu namara nja kuba ninyombeka ekiju nuko zireke kurubata rubato okwo zinaga obusodo bwazo burwaza abaana b'emyaka 3 kubasikingiro mu kiju zikuba zitakyalibwa ebisoro aheru ebyakubayirizibwa kwata nibiru batarubata heru. Eti bungu bamazire kuombeka ekiju nja kuteekamu buruda yo kubulindiramu nuko bukule kurungi atalo kibutalibanize nkoko berabiza ero bwana 10 bona bumbukuze mbutere emibazi mbugeme kurungi bukule kandi nenyongo bole mungikolenka business mfuna mesende.
Okubanza mugaso gwakyo kulindira mu nkoko, enkoko tizikuba oyine misiri hayi, tizikulyaki ebintu, kandi tizikunaganaga bisyodo aheru, kandi okanyisa bwanga mawuli. Mugaso kunaba bigere kuli kunaba ochafu otatamu nkoko oyina obuhuka dundo burwaire bwoyira aheru. Omugaso guli kuyamu ebisyodo ebyo otabikwasire mu ngaro kutangira burwaire abo kubasangire nkebalize kutangira burwaire nebisyodo ebyo nyina kubiyamu nuko bitaletere enkoko burwaire. Mukaba mutaka tuletere musomo guno nkasangwa nyoroire enkoko 2 hati kusigikira matuleteiro musomo mwatwegesa kurungi kuorora nkoko no kuzirinda. Hati nkoko nzikanyize nkoko enkuru nyina nkoko 6 obuto nyina 11 zona amo nizo 15
nabo kuba amagezi bakolenka nyowe bombeke chicken run bakiole bombeke ebiju enkoko ziriro munda mukichweka muno zitakuturuka hero nuko basobole kugobora mukurungi.
We do not yet know whether triggering, training, and coaching will be enough to help poor rural households make the transition to healthy poultry management practices. We are carefully monitoring the progress households make and fine-tuning our coaching and community support based on what we observe. The ultimate impact of the program will be evaluated through a randomized controlled trial that will be completed by the end of 2020 by our research partners at North Carolina State University.
Great. Well, I hope that video worked well for everyone. Just at this point, I know we're about 5 minutes to the end of the hour. Again, we'll stay on after that to do additional Q&A. But as I hopefully share our background here. One second. Okay, great. All right, so we are at the Q&A section. So this is our final Q&A. We have some questions around the chicken coops. So I guess I'll start with a question for Scovia. If you're on, feel free to answer this. Looking at beyond building chicken coops or chicken houses, what are the other behaviors or what are the other things that a household has to do to separate children from poultry? So if you have a house, that's one step. What else do you have to do to keep children separate from the chickens?
Thank you, Chris, and everyone listening. Besides the chicken house, we need to make a chicken run. Like a chicken coop or a chicken house is supposed to be enclosed within the chicken run because our lovebirds are used to jumping up and down. They are used to exercising, they need light. So we get a moment when we open the chicken house and the birds have to move out in the compound, but which is gazetted by a chicken run. So it is important to have a chicken run around chicken house as a method of preventing children from getting contact with birds.
Great. No, that's a great point. Thank you, Scovia. And I think, you know, there's other kind of separation of children from poultry around the hand washing facility and the foot wash to make sure that the feces doesn't travel from the chicken area to the children area. So that's another aspect of it. And I would just note that the question of a chicken run is something we've been talking a lot about because, you know, in this video, we talk about, or in these videos, we talk about the chicken run as kind of the first step because in some ways it's the cheapest step, but it actually, what we find, it really can't be the first step because many households will not construct a chicken run just to fence in chickens if there's no house inside of it. Like it's building a fence around nothing, essentially, which will expose them to the elements, and people are worried about lots of, you know, they're worried about the animals not being able to eat because they don't have feed. So like the fence is in some ways really cheap and easy, but it's related to a lot of other behaviors, such as constructing a chicken house, such as having immunized chickens so they don't spread disease, such as knowing how to either buy chicken feed if you want to buy it or to make it out of locally available resources. So it's really a complex network of behaviors there. And then another comment there was around kind of instead of a chicken versus egg dilemma, it's a chicken versus chicken coop dilemma. And I think that's a big underlying theme with this is that there's sort of a trap where you have too few chickens to make it worthwhile to invest in chicken rearing, but those chickens will die at a very high rate from different threats. And while they're alive, they will defecate everywhere. And that chicken poop will have a negative impact on health outcomes for children. So let's see here. So there was a comment. Sorry, go ahead. Or Lika?
Sorry, this is Lika. I just wanted to add to what you were saying in that question. Even often you can lose all of your chickens overnight. So when we were doing formative research, we were interviewing people who might have had 10 chickens and a disease hit and it just wiped out their 10, 15 chickens in 3 days. So it's not just about a chicken coop or a chicken house. It's about how do you manage your chickens, which is more than just a building.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think one just kind of, related point to that is that like the number of it might seem straightforward to ask people how many chickens they have, and it is, but like, as Lika said, we'll go to households that maybe 6 months ago said they had no chickens, or 6 months ago said they had 10 chickens, and it's completely reversed because there is such a high fatality rate where there's sort of this cycle where like chickens are born, they hatch, and then many die, and then they start over again. So it's a very high variance livelihood. And I think that's why you see a lot of like poor returns often for chicken rearing, is because the good management practices are not common. All right, so continuing on here. So there's a question, do the interventions increase profitability? My experience shows that farmers will adopt mainly due to profitability, low cost, high return. So yes, if you do that, there are examples of positive deviants that do practice these better, more hygienic, and just more appropriate chicken rearing practices, and there are economic returns to that. I think the challenge is related to that chicken house versus chicken dilemma, where you have to get to a certain threshold for that to be the case. So that's our selling point. That's the way our messaging is organized. It's really framed around, if you adopt these practices, it will increase your economic returns, and it will also reduce the negative health impact on your children. So that's absolutely our framing. And I think, as Sunday said in that video, we think that's pretty fundamental too. We think that if you just lecture people and tell them to like fence in their chickens, and they have 5 chickens, and those chickens then just all die, or they all starve because they can't get food, and you don't address the livelihood aspect, it's going to be pretty hard to be successful.
And can I just add, Chris, to that question? Is the importance, we have also emphasized the importance of separating the danger of chicken poop, the risk to health of chicken poop, which a lot of people were unaware of. And some people are like, oh, even if they're raising chickens already for profitability, it's also the awareness of the health side, which people have realized. And I think many people have separated sleeping with chickens as a first step, which seems like a given, but it is not.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. Thanks for making that, Lika. I think we kind of skipped over that, but like, yeah, definitely there's sort of two important, like the nighttime context versus the daytime context is completely different. And it has been, we've been, in terms of where we've had successes and where we've had challenges, at least self-reported, sleeping with chickens has decreased dramatically at night. And that was very common for reasons that we heard of in the video, where people are afraid that they'll be stolen. They don't really see any negative health problems, but they might have some other options where they can have them sleep indoors, even somewhere else, but not in the same area as the family. All right, then we have another question around gender, really, around, can you say more about how you get so many men to participate in your trainings? So maybe, yeah, if Scovia, or if you want to talk about what that process is like in terms of the triggering and training, in terms of mobilizing, and any issues there are with getting men involved, and how we try to get them to participate as well.
Okay, thank you, Chris. It is raining heavily. I hope you hear me. When we are triggering the community, or one thing we try to bring out and let the men see, or the community see, is the gender task analysis. How do they share responsibilities? And in regard to the poultry management, if only women take part in it, will it work out very well in promoting the household hygiene? So with that, we've seen men realize that in reality that they are doing less, and because of their little participation, their households have lagged behind in the area of hygiene and sanitation, and that they also realize that they are getting high costs. They are spending more on treatment because of the poor hygiene. In so doing, men have developed interest in taking part in all activities, in the poultry management, in the hygiene promotion at home. They support women in making sure that we have hygienic management of poultry, but also the general hygiene, like hand washing facilities, like helping a woman get a foot bath, and provision of soap, and so on and so forth. So that's how we've really managed to engage them in this.
Great. Thanks, Scovia. Yeah, and I would just add that I think important themes as well are the fact that we're targeting savings groups or self-help groups that are a mix of men and women to begin with. So it's sort of being advertised as a mix. And also, like, there is the livelihood aspect, which changes things, right? Where men start getting a lot more interested when there's a livelihood dynamic, and not it's not just a health, or it's not seen as just we're telling people how to keep their home hygienic. It's when there's a livelihood aspect, I think that triggers more engagement. Okay, a good question around how, what have we seen? Sorry, go ahead.
Sure, maybe to add on, just like Sandy explained in the video, the economic bit of it is a motivation to men, like realizing that when they make a hygienic poultry project, the chicken will increase more and to become a source of income. And because of that, men have now started participating in the poultry management, unlike in the past where like they'll say we cannot take charge of 2-3 birds. So we are seeing the men take part now in supporting women so that they can have chicken project, which is manageable and cost effective.
Great. No, thank you, Scovia. Great. And so there's another question around what are we seeing in terms of households building chicken coops or chicken houses? So I want to separate that out, because I think what we're seeing is in terms of chicken coops, like as in small essentially houses, so to speak, where chickens can sleep, but they might be pretty small. That's pretty high. That's like 60% or so in our area. And again, this is based on monitoring data. This is not evaluation data. So like, I don't want to that's what we are observing, what we're hearing. But that's separate from our goal, which is the chicken house, which is larger. And I think that we are seeing like not a lot of progress yet. And I think that's part of the reason why we're introducing the chicken loan, is that we think that, that's the loan to the savings groups where they can provide no interest loans to members to invest in improving their poultry management, is because we do think that there's a capital constraint there, where even though $27 is still a lot of money for a lot of households, and these savings groups have not been able to operate as normal. And even then, we don't know if savings groups normally would be able to provide enough capital. So it's sort of taken a question we had around, can these groups provide this capital? And now with COVID, it's very, very clear they can. So our hope is that loan will provide a really big incentive and impetus to make that change. Let's see. And so another question, I'm going to skip to do most households have sufficient space for a chicken run? So just in the interest of time, I'll say that yes, they typically do. And do the houses stay in the house and or run at all times, or are they still let out for any part of the day? So what I'll just say is we don't know yet, is the honest answer to that, because we're still trying to get people to adopt their practices. And frankly, we haven't been able to be in the communities themselves for several months. So I don't think we know the answer to that. Or we will later on. What we are promoting is that people keep them in those two areas for all of the time, but it's certainly a risk that they still let them out and they still poop and they still don't clean it up. And so children are still exposed to feces. That's definitely still a risk. But we are in a more rural area. I think it's an important point there. There's that one study that looked at corralling in a peri-urban setting and found that it had no impact on like child exposure, I believe, or if not diarrhea. And we are not in a peri-urban setting, we're in a rural setting. And so these households do typically have that space. One challenge that our team raised that I'll note here is we have some communities that are more transient, that may be leasing land and not have long-term plans to stay there. It is very difficult to get them to do any of these things. And I think that's what we're finding. And when we were talking about this chicken loan and which groups would be eligible for it, that our team was saying that, it's likely to be those communities that are not going to be eligible for it, because they're not even bought in on the concept of building these facilities, because it's seen as more of a long-term investment in a plot of land that they do not own or have a long-term commitment to. Like they don't know if they'll be there soon after. One other question here is synthetic fertilizer available? If so, is it commonly used or is it too expensive? And is that a reason why people might compost? So is synthetic fertilizer, is that something that is typically used by our community members, Scovia or Sunday?
Yes, but synthetic fertilizers are used on farmers on large scale. So you realize that when it is someone grows like maybe vegetables in compound gardens, bananas. So people don't use synthetic fertilizers in banana plantation. They rarely use them in small gardens for home consumption. It is only for commercial purposes because of the cost. That is one of the challenge in it. So when we encourage, you find that people easily adopt it because they find it easier to pick a chicken coop from a chicken house, rest it somewhere for some few days, and then they are able to put it on the plantations to nourish their plants.
Great. Great, thanks, Scovia. All right, well, I think we've run through all the questions we had, so thanks everyone for that. Just briefly here, in terms of what are our key takeaways, I think, to me...
Maybe Chris,
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Sunday. Sorry, Sunday, we can't
No,
hear
I was saying I didn't get the question because our internet was disturbing me.
Okay, sorry, no, that's fine, Sunday. Scovia provided a great answer.
Sorry?
Sorry, don't worry, Sunday. I think we're all set. Thank you. Great. Well, again, just to kind of return to return to our key takeaways here. To me, a big one is that rural chicken rearing is cross-cutting. We know that wash, nutrition, livelihoods, gender. It touches on a lot of areas, and it's important to get right for different reasons for each sector. The fact that we have people from different sectors on this webinar, I think, speaks to that. And it's really important to get right. So I think just in general, there needs to be more attention on this topic. And I think that the hygiene aspect of it, what we're seeing in the literature, not just our research, but what's emerging, is that it might be much more critical than we thought. I think one big advantage, Lika spoke to this, the low awareness of risk. If you take, for example, hand washing, people have been told many, many times about hand washing. They are aware, at least on a conceptual level, of the advantages of hand washing, the theoretical benefits of it. That is not the case for chickens. Chicken feces as a risk factor for children and their health, there's very low awareness of that, right? So that makes it easier than, for instance, hand washing maybe to get some wins in behavior change in this area. On the negative side, or difficult side of the behaviors here, it's a very complex set. I think if you listen to everything we talked about, there's a lot of behaviors, right? It's not just one, and they interrelate with each other. So maybe you don't care about chicken feed, but if you don't address chicken feeding, they're not gonna corral their chickens, right? So there's a lot of interdependencies across these. And I would just add, we don't actually know which of these behaviors matters for hygiene. We don't know if it's enough if you just make it so they don't sleep in the same room as the children. We don't know. We don't know if it's enough that there's a chicken house but no chicken run. We don't know if it's enough that households sweep up the feces and have none of those facilities. I think there's a lot of knowledge gaps in terms of what matters for this. And so that's one of the challenges we have here in terms of developing a program. We're essentially creating a ladder of behaviors where we're really trying to insist on the things we think will have the bigger health impact, and then providing other steps up that they can take that might improve livelihoods further, for example. But it makes it a complex problem. And as we talked about, there's sort of the chicken coop or chicken house versus chicken dilemma here, where 5 to 10 chickens might be enough to cause disease, but not enough for a profit incentive. And so you might need to sell people on the idea that if they invest this time, they won't have, maybe you increase the number of chickens they have, but we hope decrease the risk those chickens pose to the household because they're managed more hygienically, right? And just to note again, I think there's a big potential payoff whether you talk about children eating eggs, improving livelihood outcomes, the child health impact of the hygiene improvements. There's lots of different ways that improving chicken rearing can have a large impact. And so I think that, you know, again, to me, this is an area that needs a lot more investment in terms of testing out what works. This is one approach that we're taking here. We don't know if it will work. And certainly there'll still be questions, even if we do have an impact, there'll be questions on like, what's the most efficient, effective way to do that. So just to say that there's much more to learn. So yeah, so we're at 15 minutes past the hour. So I think we'll wrap up there. One note that I will make is that I did in the chat box leave a couple of resources. So if you take a look, I think you should be able to see, hopefully, if not, I'll share via email. You should be able to see a link to the article that we made with our partners at NC State prior to this project that really informed it in terms of the association of chicken ownership with negative child health outcomes, as well as an article we just put on Next Billion that kind of summarizes this project. You can also reach out to me if you have more information to hear more about our work. And again, you know, thanks to the folks at USAID for making this happen, and all of our friends in the kind of Wash Pals world. I know we have people on the research side, more implementation side, engaged in this webinar. So thanks to you all. And with that, I think we have no more questions. So thank you very much, and I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you.